Great. Thank you so much. Wherever you're joining from, good morning, good evening, probably like really late at night as well. So thank you for coming. Before we get started, I just want to thank everyone that who's here, no matter what time zone you're here and like from and what part of life you're coming from. We have, yes, I think, yeah, we'll keep waiting for more people to come in, but we'll get started now. So, welcome to Think Better, Write Faster. What this workshop or webinar really is basically we're going to talk about how to slow down the thinking so the writing becomes easy. I want to start by saying something that might not make you very happy. This is in no way a shortcut to writing your applications. If anything, yes, it will help you in the long run to cut short the time. But before you build that system, it'll probably take you a little bit of a longer prep time before you get to that system. So, the reason I wanted to do this workshop is that most people do the thinking and writing backwards. Like I said, we need to slow down the thinking so the writing gets better. So the goal is by the end of today, you'll have clear phases, systems, specific AI prompts that you can use after you leave this workshop, and a completely different way of seeing your own experience. So if you were expecting a lecture on AI and what AI is, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it's going to be a very generic, brief overview of what AI is. And it is a practical workshop more than a webinar, if I'm being honest. So we will talk about how to use those tools and why they exist for psychology applications specifically. And before we begin, just a quick word about how the space works. So that is me. I am Shrija. And then, quick word before we get started. So, this is a place to learn. Please ask questions. Please interact. We will have a bunch of polls on our WhatsApp group. If you're not already on our WhatsApp group, we will share the link in a second. And I know a lot of you might feel like there's a bit of competition in this field. You might feel like if everybody is at this workshop, then who's going to get the job or who's going to do better? Nobody is a competitor here. We have enough in the space and everybody's a collaborator. So stay curious, interact, ask the questions, and you're here to actually work through this with me. So let us make the most of the time that we have together. And some of you are spending your bank holiday with me, so I am genuinely honored. So, what are we covering today? Before we get to that, could we please join the WhatsApp groups so that whatever the polls that we're sending, you guys can actually interact in them. And we will be sending all the AI prompts as well in here and any other resources we talk about today. So I will let you guys take a moment and join the group. We've got one. And if you need the link, it's in our chat as well, apart from the QR code. I'll give it one more minute before we get started. Great. So now that we're all on the WhatsApp groups, let's actually get started. I want to talk about today's agenda. So what are we covering today? We are covering what is AI, how to use it, what are the misuses, and what it does to your mind. So actually your cognition, how to audit and enrich your CV. What I mean by audit is basically go through your CV and actually find out what you're missing and where you're underselling yourself, where you can strengthen yourself, and what are all the things that you could be doing wrong. How to decode a job description. So I have mentored around like 190 psychology students in the last couple years, and I have seen a major issue with people not reading their job descriptions. So I really want to talk about how to decode a job description today, and of course, how to write your first draft fast, and how to use AI to build your final statement. And some people, this supporting statement can also be called a cover letter. They're not interchangeable, but if you're coming from a specific country where you call it cover letter, I don't want you to be confused. And the last and the most important bit is the ethical checklist before you submit. So what is AI? I know a lot of us have a lot of ideas, and I just want to clear the air by saying that AI is a system. It's basically trained on enormous amounts of human generated texts, emails, books, research papers, clinical notes, job applications. And the focus or the key word here is human generated, and it basically predicts the most useful response based on what we have given all these books, research papers, whatever. So this is the whole thing. It is a pattern recognition on a massive scale. Think of autocomplete on your phone. So when you type something and you autocomplete, so that is form of a prediction model. It basically predicts your next word based on what you usually say. So AI does something similar, but at a deeper depth and a sophistication that makes the output feel almost human. The keyword there is almost. So because AI has never lived a day in the real world, it cannot check facts. You can think of AI as like a brilliant research assistant, but a research assistant who's just in the library and has never stepped outside the library. So it cannot verify your experience. It cannot tell if it cannot call your organization and ask if you're telling the truth, what your experiences are. It works entirely on the information that you give, which means the quality of your output is entirely dependent on the quality of your input, which commonly known as the prompt. So give it wig, get wig back, give it rich, specific, real material, and it will help you shape something genuinely impressive. Now, talking about the uses and misuses, very, very important. So let us be very specific about where AI helps and where it causes problems. When you use it well, AI is brilliant at structuring your thinking. So sometimes you sit down to write an application, and you just feel scattered, not because you don't know where to start from. It's just you have so many ideas coming at the same time, and your thinking feels clogged, and you're like, I don't even know if I'm going in the right direction. And then sometimes you just stop writing at all. So AI is very helpful in doing that structuring for your thinking. The key is your thinking. AI is the system that should be a support tool for your cognition, your thinking, and your intelligence. So it's helpful for structuring thinking once you've done the hard cognitive work yourself. It is excellent at translating your experience onto your country's clinical language. So let's say either a specific country, or let's say if you are moving from forensic to, let's say, eating disorders, and you do not have the right language, what, how, where, it can be great to help you with translating your experiences, how your forensic psychology experience can be used in the eating disorder section. Or if you're moving from India to the UK or US or Singapore, because every country uses its own clinical academic jargon or language. So it's great at picking those things up. So if you trained or worked in a different sector or a different country, it can help you find the equivalent terminology. Essentially, it compresses and organizes the content you've already generated. And it catches the gaps in things that you might have forgotten. Could be there's a skill that you've forgotten, a clinical word that you've forgotten, a phrase, big, something that is being repeated. So that is the beneficial side. Now, coming to the problematic side. And this is where most people ask AI to write the entire statement from the scratch with nothing to work from. Or I've also seen people submit output where they could not speak in an interview. And then basically what happens is now you might have actually guessed a good prompt and you have done the whole supporting statement from scratch with the help of AI, you might even land an interview. But what are you going to do at the interview? None of the examples are yours, none of the words are yours. The output was so polished when you used AI. How are you going to mask that at an interview? When an interviewer asks you a follow-up question, how are you going to intervene? How are you going to explain? How are you going to expand? Right? So the rule of ethical AI is you bring the raw material, you bring the ingredients, that's what I call it, and I'll get to it more in depth why I call it the ingredients, and AI helps it with the assembly or making the whole dish. Coming to the risk, so the misuse, especially for us people who are in psychology, is massive. It's not just the risk of like misusing AI in like just the applications and getting rejected, XYZ. When you're in a clinical field, a field that is entirely built on trust, accuracy, and professional integrity, submitting content, especially that misinterprets your experience, puts your professional credibility at risk, and also the people that you're going to work with. You might have come up with like a brilliant experience of how you have worked with a client with psychosis, right? And then you might even get the job. But how are you actually going to maintain or like manage this client with psychosis? So you're putting yourself at risk and also the people who put the trust in you. So psychology or any roles that you're looking at involve working with vulnerable people. And recruiters know this, you know this. So when anybody you're reading a supporting statement, recruiters are supporting a statement, reading a supporting statement, you should always think about reflective practice more than polished language. I know, especially if you're from India or one of the South Asian countries, we are always told to have a polished cover letter or a supporting statement, but here the polished language that will not get you very far, especially if you cannot um, use the same polished language when you're in an interview, right? So that's of no use if it's just a bunch of words that look impressive. So beyond the ethics of application itself, think about the interview. Like I said, if your supporting statement's written with AI, it's deeply processed and it's almost like there is no personality of you that will naturally be present. So the statement is just a document. It's just a document with no true evidence or story to it. Now, that is one of the problems of not using AI properly, which is in the clinical space, in the professional credibility space. Now, coming to the impact on your mind and productivity. Using AI for the right tasks reduces cognitive load, which means for people who are still dipping their toes on the cognitive side of psychology, think of cognitive load as if your brain is a massive container and it can hold a certain amount of things, could be water, could be pebbles, whatever it is, and you're asking it to store more and more and more and things at the same time. Before it can process it, it gets overloaded and there is no space to actually use it for higher order thinking, which is reflection for the sake of this context. So there is genuine neuroscientific evidence behind why using AI the right way actually makes you smarter, and using it the wrong way makes you way worse at your cognitive abilities. When I say smarter, I do not mean the IQ way. I want to clarify that. I mean smarter in terms of the context that we're talking about, which is writing your applications. So, your brain has a limited mental workspace called the working memory. It can only hold certain number of information for certain number of seconds. So while you write your supporting statement, you're analyzing your experiences, you're also problem solving sometimes, because they might say, okay, you need an X skill, let's say assessments. You don't have that, but you need to problem solve and think what is the closest skill that you might have, that you can say, okay, I don't have the assessment skill, but I have done XYZ. So I have come close to assessments, but I'm willing to learn. So that is something that you do with your problem solving skills. So you're using problem solving, you're doing decision making, you're doing analysis, reflection, all of these things. But at the same time, you're trying to hold multiple ideas. That's when your working memory is collapsing. So this is the challenge that comes with application writing, and basically it asks for your working memory to do too many things simultaneously, especially when you're starting out in your early careers, because you're still getting used to thinking of your experience and who you are professionally and what your skills are naturally. It gets much easier when you repetitively write it and you kind of find your feet and your identity in this field, but initially it's a lot of load on your working memory. So this is why it feels so hard. I know some of you might have blamed yourself thinking that, like, I just don't want to do that application again because it's boring, I'm not motivated. Most of the time, it's just you're tired of holding so many things and also being unsure of what you're holding, right? So, the research on cognitive load tells us that when we offload, so that is we're taking the tasks that are repetitive, that are low level tasks, such as reformatting sentences, organizing notes, correcting grammar to an external tool, which is AI, we free up that mental space for thinking that actually matters. So, what are the things that actually matter? Reflection, reasoning, insight, clinical judgment. So, we can use AI ethically for the repetitive tasks, which you can call it as like the cognitive scaffolding, and then you can actually do the meaningful work in your head while AI is being the tool just to structure it. So that is the impact on your brain and mind. Like I said, there's a cognitive perspective on it. So like I said, you can outsource all the repetitive low level processing. Cognitive load gets free, and then this is one way to use ethical AI tools ethically. Coming to the cost. So there is a flip side to using AI and its impact on your mental abilities or the cognition or the thinking abilities, which is just as important as its advantages. When you hand the generative phase of actually remembering, connecting, and thinking to AI, what that means is a lot of times, if any of you are used to using AI for every day, could be emails, could be brainstorming, and you're like, oh, I don't want to like do the thinking. I'll just like give it a prompt and it'll do all the thinking for me. You're actually weakening your own thinking abilities. What that means is that there is a great strength. So most of you have heard this phrase of things that wire together, they fire together and they strengthen. So that is plasticity. And when you're basically, it's like your muscle. If you're some of you might be going to the gym regularly, and if you stop going, the muscle gets weaker, your strength gets weaker. Same thing happens with your brain, right? So, using AI overly, especially for thinking, so deep thinking, it will weaken your cognitive muscles. And especially if we're talking about in this context, if your cognitive muscles are weakened, how are you going to actually perform in an interview? And let's say you're a qualified clinician and you're a clinical psychologist, education psychologist, sports psychologist, whatever you want to be. How are you actually going to have that cognitive level thinking, patience, attention to detail when you're actually treating your clients or supporting your clients? So, coming back to our situation, which is the supporting statements, recruiters are really trained to build their interview questions directly from your supporting statements. So every specific example you include becomes a potential interview question. Every skill you claim, every example you include, they will probe to know what you spoke about, especially in the era of AI. They are doing it more and more, right? So AI generates those examples, then you don't remember what to say. The simple rule is AI compresses and refines. You generate your own experiences. That is what I want to leave you with. And then I want to go quickly over the types of AI tools. If we're talking about types of language models, types of AI tools, you can do a whole day of series on that. And I am also not an expert in that. I have taught myself these things, so I'm not the best person to teach you what AI tools are, what language models are. But these are some of the tools that I want to leave you with. So these are called large language models that help you with writing and thinking. And I will be sharing these in the group after the presentation. If you've been in the group for the last week, there were a lot of AI tools that were shared as well. So these are your guys that you want to play around with. We've got speed generating, raw material, fast, which means these will be something that you will use quite regularly if you're following the system that I'm giving you. What these do is you can dictate and they will type it for you, which means literally speech to text. This is not something that AI has bought in. So AI has made the transcription or the transcribing part a bit more smoother and better, but Apple dictation has always been here. Microsoft dictation's always been here. So the last one is grammar and readability. Many of you might have known Grammarly. Grammarly existed since the age of long time. And now Grammarly AI exists. What does it do? It just has made things smoother, faster, and better. Great. So, the problem this workshop is going to solve is that most of you, I have been in your space as well. We sit down to write a supporting statement and we just feel stuck. You're like, I don't know if the structure is right. I don't know if this example is right. This feels too short. This feels too long. This does not feel professional. So, all of those feelings, emotions, I want you to leave it here in the workshop and get out of this workshop feeling better and the opposite of those emotions. So when you try to remember your experience, match it to a job description, write fluently, and sound professional all at the same time, it is a lot, right? So we are going to solve that problem. This process breaks it into 4 phases, and your brain does one thing at a time, and AI handles the assembly. But please remember, you own every word. Great. Okay. So when I say let's audit your profile, what auditing means is going back into your already written CV, could be cover letter, whatever it is, and finding the missing aspects. The reason there is a burrito bowl is because I am giving you the ingredients. I'm teaching you how to pick. So it's basically going grocery shopping together. We're going to pick up the ingredients, and you're the one who will make this burrito bowl, right? You can make it as spicy, as fresh, as juicy as you want. It's completely up to you. I'm just here to give you the ingredients. Great. So, phase one begins here. Before you write a single word of a supporting statement, you need to deeply audit your CV. So, CV, resume, whatever you call it. And the audit question is very specific for every bullet point, every line, every role. Does this tell a recruiter what skill I developed? Or does it simply just describe what I was asked to do? What that means is sometimes we mistake our CVs with job descriptions. That's not what CVs are for, right? Job descriptions are for job descriptions. They're supposed to tell you what you're going to do in the job, but your CV should tell people what you did during the job and what you learned and what you basically became. When I say what you became, it's the behavioral part, it's the clinical skills, what you learned, right? So it's thinking about what are those skills that you have not mentioned, and then thinking about what is something that I developed that I'm not talking about and I'm not describing enough. So like I said, I've mentored so many students and I've seen so many CVs in the last couple of years, and I myself, when I look back at my own CV, most CVs include strong ones. They basically talk about reflection, they list tasks, they describe the activity, and activity on its own does very little to the recruiter who's shortlisting. So basically, if you're just saying that, okay, let's say you've worked in a special needs school, right? You have mentioned that you have supported the teacher in the classroom with a child with special needs. Great. That's a great skill. That's a great duty that you've done. But what have you really learned? I don't know what you have learned, right? Now, that's just a job description. It's not your CV. So the questions that you want to ask yourself is, what skills am I not mentioning here? What responsibilities sound too vague to be meaningful? So when I say, okay, I have helped in a classroom, it could be for a lot of different roles. You need to be specific. It shouldn't be vague. It should basically paint a picture of exactly who you were in that space and what was your role. What would have fallen apart if you did not exist in that job role, right? And very important, what outcomes or results am I leaving out entirely? A lot of us describe the duties that you're doing, but you completely leave out the results. So if you have supported the student, let's say with special needs in the classroom, what have they achieved with your help? That's completely missed in a lot of CVs. So that is one thing that I want to say, that audit your CVs, really, really think. And when you're thinking, a lot of you might be like, but I didn't do anything special. There's always, always, always something special that you've done. Again, I have seen about 200 CVs. There is not one CV that I've seen where people have not undersold themselves. So please, 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 really, really look into your CV. Coming to your start, I think there is somebody who has a question. Yes, Kalpana, please tell me.
Hi, Sija. I just had a doubt thinking that so do we change or do we update our CV every time that we apply for a new job role?
N- No, not at
So
all.
we keep it
No.
consistent.
Yes, you keep it consistent. And also, I think the reason a lot of us keep changing the CVs is because I think a lot of countries teach us to keep it under 2 pages. That is one of the reason as well, that we keep changing and we keep like auditing and changing the main job roles, is something that I've heard. But no, it shouldn't be something that you change every time. It might be that every time you see a new job description, you might find like a new keyword that you want to include, but no, you don't need to change your CV every time. Not at all.
But every time I've heard it from a lot of people saying that you should give the company or the recruiters what they want, which they mention in their job description. So how do we tell the company that they are exactly what they're looking for? Like I am exactly what they're looking for.
That's what the supporting statements are for.
Okay, I got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, because your CV is supposed to be like a little dashboard or like a glimpse. And
True.
the supporting statement is going to be like, okay, this is who I am, and this is why exactly I match to your company.
Okay, so
If
the supporting statement keeps changing for everything, every new application that I
yes, yes, supporting statement changes every time. There should be no supporting statements that can be or should be reused.
understood. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
of course. Right. So your starting point, I am going to attempt to switch the slide now. Can you guys see a CV?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, great. So a lot of your CVs or some of your CVs might look like this. This is an example of my CV that could be the starting point. So I have written something which reads, I'm a psychology graduate with a master's degree looking for opportunities in mental health field. I enjoy working with people that need support, and I'm a hard worker. I am keen to develop my clinical skills and work as part of a team. I'm passionate about psychology and would like to build my career in this area. Nothing wrong. Absolutely true. Great. So let's move on. I have added my skills. I have, again, let's say we'll look at the support worker. I've written quite a few lines. It should look impressive with the amount of things that I've written and the length of my sentences. And I want all of you to read this for a second. So there will be a WhatsApp poll on your WhatsApps in a second. And I want you guys to answer this WhatsApp poll based on the example that you see. I will give everybody 2, 3 minutes to go through the poll and answer. Great, all great responses. I'm going to wait a couple more minutes. Okay, I think, yeah, we have a couple more people answering. Okay, so getting back to the polls, the votes, the highest voted is, what is it? Let's see. It's reflection on what you learned or how you developed. Second place is any mention of outcome or impact on the patient. Then comes the name of the condition worked with. Then the names of the interventions delivered. Then the assessment tools used. Then evidence that you contributed beyond your basic duties. And there are actually no words for clinical work. Okay, Lisa, thank you for the vote. So there is one word for clinical vocabulary that shows you understand the work. So the answer is it's all of them, especially the clinical vocabulary. Reason being, I am simply here just describing the clinical duties. There are no clinical vocabulary. So here, checking if their living environment was free from hazards, that's safeguarding. There is not a mention of safeguarding here at all. The reason it's so important is because if I'm a recruiter and I've been on panels for like scanning applications, interviews, you get about 100 and 140, sometimes 400 applications. You physically, as a human, do not have the capacity to read through all of them with that much care, even if you want to. And also, honestly speaking, survival of the fittest. If there are application CVs that are shouting the keywords out, then my eyes will naturally catch that. Right. So, this is the first example of what a lot of CVs might look like. And nothing wrong with it, but we will today learn how to make it better. Right. First steps, research similar roles. Even if it's a support worker role, SCND support worker role, anything. I've seen that a lot of people have, support worker or working with special needs children roles, especially in schools, community, they underplay it. And it's not entirely your fault because a lot of times these roles do not have a clinical psychologist who are actively helping you reflect and get through your role in a psychological or psychologically safe way. So, what I want you to do is once you go through your CV critically, the next step is to look outwards, which means look for similar roles to your past experiences, especially if the country that you're applying in the job, the country that you're applying job in is different to your country that you're from, or you have experiences from a different country. Please, please, please look for past experiences in that country. It might not be the exact same one, but something close. And for example, if you're in the UK, go to NHS jobs, go to Indeed UK, go to LinkedIn and find similar jobs and find at least 3 to 5 job descriptions for each of this job, and really look at the sentence framing, look at the words and see what's missing. These job descriptions become your benchmark. Read them carefully and compare. What responsibilities do they list? What skills do they name? What clinical academic terminology do they use? And how do they describe it? This is a search for vocabulary and phrases. And it's also one of the most powerful things you can do immediately to improve your CV without adding single new experience, right? The difference that we make here is a weak application and a strong application basically reflects and identifies its language properly. So once you know that language, you can apply to it to your existing experiences, and it honestly can be such a game changer. So again, responsibilities, required skills, terminologies, clinical and academic language. If you're struggling, and a lot of you might be struggling with this terminology, it's completely okay, because a lot of times in universities we don't get taught these practice terms. I have created this free book. It has about like more than 150 ABCs of clinical language and its definitions. What that means is I've taken your everyday tasks that you do in vast number of roles, and I have described them so you can identify the skills that you're doing, because so many of you are in such wonderful roles, but just because you don't have a clinician, especially a clinical psychologist or a psychotherapist, guiding you, supporting you, mentoring you, a lot of you are undervaluing your experiences and are not able to put a name to it. So there is a link in the WhatsApp group, just send now. If you go onto the website and if you scroll down, it'll say the psychology dictionary. It's free. Please go through it. Please read it. So yeah, that is that. Now we have another WhatsApp poll time. And it's okay. You don't get penalized for not adding it. If you have not added it, it's completely more than common. Let's give it a couple more minutes. There are a lot of you who have not answered yet, and it would be really, really great if everybody could go answer the poll. And if it's not clear, what I mean is if you've done a dissertation or a research project and you have actually put it as a big chunk as an experience and instead of just a line next to your education. So that's what I mean. If you've actually done title, organization, skills, the duration that you worked for, like an actual job description, then you have. If you've just mentioned it as a line next to your education background, then you have not. Okay, great. So it's almost a 50-50, and that's completely okay. A lot of us really, really, really downplay our research skills. The reason I want to start by talking about research skills is because there is no clinical work without research. So please don't undermine any research projects, any presentations that you might have done, anything at all. Could be voluntary, could be paid, anything. Don't underplay it. Please add your dissertations as a job description. You might have learned so many skills. It deserves more than, just a line there. It could be paid, unpaid, research, placement, whatever it is. It has to be on there. Great. So moving to the next slide. Right. Now, it might be quite intimidating to be like, okay, but how do I know that I have mentioned everything in each of my experiences? So this is something that I use for each of my experience. You go from place, population, intervention, age, setting. What that means. For each role or experience on your CV, let it be paid, unpaid, research, placement, whatever it is, it comes from specific 5 elements. The place, where did you work? Was it school, community, hospital, forensic setting? Was it prisons? Was it a clinic? Where was it? Was it a care home? So that tells a lot about the kind of experience that you have. Comes to the population. So population is the kind of concerns and issues that you're dealing with. Could be eating disorders, could be brain injury, could be anxiety disorders, could be postpartum depression. What is your population? Coming to intervention. And something that I really, really want to mention is intervention does not mean that you had to complete a whole CBT 6-week program with the clients. Intervention could be as small as you stopping a child or somebody from having a meltdown. Intervention could be you just de escalating a situation. It's anything where you intervene when crisis happens. So that is your intervention. I don't want you to feel like interventions are only the CBTs, ACTs, or when you have to do your entire rehabilitation program. It's anything that you do to help your client feel better, calmer, even if it's just in the moment for a second. That is your intervention. Please remember that. Then coming to the age group, very important. A lot of us skip it. Working with a special needs child is very different from working with a special needs adult or an elderly person, right? And now coming to the setting. Is it secure setting? Is it community? What is it? How is the restriction? It matters a lot. Right. So ask yourself, where did you work? Who did you work with? So who was your MDT? And again, this is another thing that I want you to remember, that MDT doesn't have to be your clinicians, your doctors. MDT can be your teachers, your principals that you work with, the support staff, the people that are actually supporting you to get to the outcomes that you're trying to get to, right? So very important to even mention who you worked with, and these 5 details transform any vague bullet points that you have into a clear clinical picture. Because a lot of times, if I'm reading, I don't know where people have worked. I don't know what setting you've worked. And by that, I can guess a lot of things. So that is something I really want you to keep in mind. Please include these things for each and every job description that you have. Coming to treating your work experience like research. So treating research like work experience that we were just talking about. This is one of the most common missed opportunities in psychology applications, particularly for international applicants. So research experience like dissertations, independent projects, lab placements, audits, conference presentations, could be even like teaching roles. All of them belong in your employment section. It should be formatted exactly the same way that a paid work organization date 3 to 5 bullet points format goes, because most applicants like bury research under your education and leave it out entirely. But especially if you are outside India, and a lot of like even hospitals in India value research so much. Research literacy is something that is like gold in clinical practice, because you cannot practice anything if you do not understand the reasoning behind it, the research literacy behind it. It's a genuine competence. Please don't undervalue it. It appears explicitly when you read the person's specifications in a lot of these job descriptions. So if you designed a study, if you worked on a study, if you were part of methodology, data collection, whatever it is, could be the smallest, even if you did the ethics document, please write it. Okay, now coming to the main part. How do you actually save the time and how do you use AI? I am getting to it. So, for each of your experience, so let's say you have worked in 3 different jobs. I need you to create 500 to 700 word reflection description for each of these roles. I know this workshop was supposed to save your time, but like I said, it's not a shortcut. It will actually take you a little longer before it gets really easy. And this is the part of building the system, right? So what you do after you have audited your CV, you have opened your CV, you've done all the necessary work that a CV needs. Now you look at each of your roles, each of your current fast roles that you're doing, and include, so it has to be each of these job roles need to be different documents, right? Each of this document needs to have 500 to 700 reflection description of each of your role projects that you've done. Include responsibilities, clinical skills, the teamwork that you've done, the challenges, what you've learned, what you've actually achieved from it. Now, after you're done writing it, then you use AI. You use AI to find the missing skills, missing and correct vocabulary, missing reflection, and highlight your ingredients. What do I mean by ingredients? Ingredients are your skills. It could be organization, it could be assessment, it could be an intervention, it could be team working. So all the behavioral and clinical and academic skills are your ingredients, right? So do not cheat on this. First, I need you to write it by yourself. It could be the silliest description, could be the silliest 500-700 words that you've written. Oversell yourself as much as you can. Please sell yourself at this point, because you need to get used to it, especially if you are from a South Asian background. We have this conditioned in our brains to be humble. Please don't be humble. You've done great work, you have achieved great degrees, you've gone through immense pain and pressure and also pleasure to be here. So please do not undersell yourself. Great. So now let's say you've done 3 jobs in the past and 1 current. So you should have 4 different documents. So 4 different documents for 4 different job descriptions. So that is your midpoint. Once you've done this, I want you to highlight your ingredients. What that means, I need you to highlight each of the skills that you're finding. What that means, I will show you in a second. So this is where you reach your midpoint. So what should your midpoint look like? Let's say you remember we were talking about my support worker role. If I write 500 words, the document should look something like this. And I want you guys to read it for a second. Great. So while you're doing this part, again, do not edit it while you are writing it. Once you are fully satisfied that you have nothing else absolutely left in your brain, then you go to AI. And also, the final product needs to be between 500 and 700 words, but when you're word vomiting, it could go up to 1200. It's fine. The more, the better. We can cut it down later, right? So there is a specific prompt that you can use for this. When I say specific, it's the prompt that worked for me. There could be a better prompt out there. You might find a better way to, prompt any tool that you're using. Again, there is no specific prompt that there is no specific tool that I would suggest. Again, Claude has been working better than ChatGPT, and then there's Perplexity. There's so many. But again, I don't want to recommend any tool because I'm not the AI expert. I'm just here to tell you what has worked with me. So there is an AI prompt that's in the WhatsApp group right now. That's the first AI prompt. Now moving to the next part. So again, use AI strategically. Only use these tools like ChatGPT or Claude to find the missing skills, missing vocabulary, reflection, repetitive phrasing, weak structure. Again, only to organize and refine. Okay. So I want to talk about the term reflection and why it matters so much. So everybody talks about, you should be reflective, you should be reflective. And if anybody has gone for an NHS interview, you might have received at least one feedback that says, oh, you need to be more reflective. But what does that even mean? So reflection is basically the skill where you go to do a job, you're going to I'm sure a lot of you are working at this point. You go, you come back. Have you actually thought of why certain things are happening? Have you actually thought what is this certain job actually teaching you? When you mess up at your work, and we all mess up because we're all learning, do you actually freeze, or do you actually think about why that happened, right? So it's about thinking deeper into why, what, how. It really matters because, again, the applicants or the recruiters aren't looking for your English vocabulary or your strength in sentence formation. I have seen a person who has just been a cashier at Boots, which is a medical supply store in the UK, get an assistant psychologist position purely based on her reflection skills. She reflected on how, her skills in talking to the customers is quite similar to talking to clients or people in the NHS. So it's the reflection. It's reflecting on what you have learned and how far those skills can take you or can be transferred. A lot of times we might feel like, okay, so I've not worked in the NHS, or I've not worked in the AP role, I do not have assessment skills. How will I actually get the AP role? It does not matter. It does not matter as long as you've started somewhere and you actually believe and you actually reflect on the skills that you have. And reflection in itself is and can be a whole workshop, but that is what I want you to focus on. Reflection is everything when you're doing your supporting statements. And again, AI cannot reflect for you as much as you can reflect for you. It can fill the gaps. Okay, now let's rewrite your CV. All this that we've done, we've found our ingredients, we've written the 500 to 700 paragraph, but we need to actually get it down to bullet points because we need to give it to the recruiters. Now I am going to switch back to the first CV that I showed you, which is this, and I want you to read it for a second again before I switch it to the polished one. And I'm going to switch it now. Okay. Very similar, but again, you don't, and this is a disclaimer, you do not need to highlight it in the CV. This is just because it's an example and I want you to catch on to the language. Let me know if it's too small for anybody to read. I can zoom in. And I want to pause here if anybody has questions before we move, because we do have quite a bit of the workshop left. Great. So that is how your CV should look like, full of terms that first they should make sense to you. If it's just a CV with all these fancy words, then and you don't understand them, it won't make sense. So yes, the correct words, correct phrases, deep reflection. Again, I'm going to say this again, please oversell yourself, do not undersell yourself. You can always come back from overselling, but underselling is something that will undermine your experience. Okay, the next slide, it just reiterates what I've said. Everything. Yes, we have a question. Yes, please tell me, Kalpana.
So all of this really is great, makes sense. But what if the person is a freelance therapist or something like that in India? So I am freelance therapist. Plus, I've also worked in a hospital. I have an experience working in the hospital. I worked
Sure.
as a palliative care counselor, so I have 1 year experience. So that I'm gonna add in my CV. But what if I'm a freelance therapist? What do I do then?
What is your challenge with being a freelance therapist in terms of your CV?
As in, you said the setting part of, like you have to mention who you have worked with. And of course, I've not worked with anybody else except one psychiatrist that is working in abroad. And he is the one who suggests or refers clients to me. So that's the only one person I've worked with. And
Yeah.
normally the population is teenagers. So I just speak to teenagers and adults, young adults, basically, for relationship counseling, academic stress, work stress, and all of that.
So I think you've just described it perfectly to me. That's how you actually mention it. You mention all the people that you've worked with. Again, don't feel shy for making it a long list, right? The worst that can happen is, again, you not mentioning the things that and the people that you worked with. And the best thing that can happen is, if the list is getting too long, split the sentence into two, three. bits. Let's say you work with three different populations, those become three different sentences, and then the description gets a little longer. That's it.
So, but the freelance therapist work has been, acknowledged in UK or any other parts of the world, because in India, I don't know, it is not that much, but I don't know about other countries.
So, good question. I myself am recruiting freelance therapists, and I think it's very valued. I think freelance therapists or therapists who work with individual clients, you guys have some of the most vast experience because a lot of times you are rotating, and I think it's very respected. At least that's my personal opinion, I would say. Um, in terms of respect for a certain, let's say, job profile, it really depends from organization to organization, but I don't see an ethical or practice dilemma or like a stigma to being a therapist with who just rotates between clients. Have you faced any difficulty?
Not really as such, but I was just wondering, so do I need to add my freelance therapy experience in my CV? And,
110%. Yes.
that was my actual question.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you so
Please
much.
do. Please. Yes. Okay. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely, yes.
Great. Okay, moving to the slide, which is called the framing difference. So again, whatever I said, frame your things properly. First, again, just to reiterate what I've said, you could say, I help the teacher deliver lessons and manage challenging behavior. Nothing wrong with it. But let's see the second example, which says applied psychological principles using positive reinforcement techniques to manage challenging behaviors, developing patience, problem solving skills directly transferable to clinical setting. It's all the things that you've done, but just forget because you might not have that person who is telling you repeatedly that, hey, you're doing all these skills. So, same experience, completely different signal to the recruiter. Then, next slide. This, yes, please, Ananya.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, as someone who doesn't have experience in conducting psychological assessments, but is looking at a job that asks that to be a crucial skill.
Yes.
And I have experience in SCNTA work, and I have experience in supporting clients online via online triage. How do I explain that I will be able to do this, or I have, like, what exactly are they looking for in terms of skill set that,
Right.
is needed for psychological assessments?
So, that's one of the most common questions I get. So, good question. When we think of assessments, again, same like interventions, we always think it needs to be DCAF surveys or like WMS. Yes, those are all assessments, but assessment, if you take it as like a literal term, the verb, it's assessing something. It could be risk assessments. It could be assessing somebody's anxiety level when you're triaging. So, can I ask what role you are in currently?
Um, I am currently in the SCN TA role, so I do work with a lot of like risk intervention in the hierarchy of that. So that
See,
would
that's your assessment. Yeah. So again, when you don't have a certain skill, and this stands true for any skill that you do, even if you're applying a PhD, it's not everybody is going to have 100% skills for the job. So what you basically do, this is where reflection comes in. You reflect, you sit down, you think of the closest skill that you've attained to actual assessments, and you say, this is what I've done. Let's say you are working with children with special needs, and you probably assess risk every day. You assess probably even like behavior patterns. Which child has had more challenging behaviors or difficult behaviors this week compared to the last week? Those are all assessments. You've worked with data, you've worked with patterns, you have basically guided interventions or the week's plan based on that data. That's what assessments are. The assessments that are the bigger assessments, phase ones, they all work on a certain principle, that is, we try to understand the client based on a certain tools And then we get some data, we study the data, we analyze the data. We also obviously pick up information from the environment, such as their family, social, and then we create a formulation to come up with the plan or the intervention. Same thing that you do with special needs school. You look at your children, you observe them. So that is also the form of assessment that you're doing, which is you assessing. And then sometimes you will even have those like sheets where you will pick or like record the challenging behaviors. I'm assuming some form of it. Am I correct?
Yes, we usually log behavior,
Yes,
monitor, like
yes. Exactly.
if it gets.
So, yeah, instead of the self sitting down and doing the assessment, you are actually assessing the child and you are recording the data. And now, whenever you change your weekly schedule for this child, it's evidence based. We do assessments so that our interventions are evidence based. This is why it's so important to do two things: really, really, really understand what a skill means at its shortest, smallest form. I don't want you to be scared when you think of intervention or assessments or safeguarding. These feel like big, scary words only clinical psychologists do. That's not true. Please break the if any skill feels scary, especially in these big assistant psychologist job descriptions. There is a very simple explanation to it. The reason there are big words is because you don't need to explain all that information, because safeguarding is a big, big skill and it can be shortened and said safeguarding. That's why it's not made to look elite, it's not made to look scary. It's just supposed to condense a really long explanation. Does that help, Ananya?
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Right. So, same example, self reflected example. The next one that I'm going to show you is from my personal CV. And the reason, okay, first we do a WhatsApp poll. This is a long one and probably, I think, the last one. So I want you to tell me what is the difference that we noticed compared to this one, compared from this one to this one. Great. Lovely. And there is no one correct answer, it's all of them. Just a list of things that I wanted to have you guys reflect on. Great responses. Thank you for being so interactive. Great. Moving on, I want to show you guys my personal CV, and it's also publicly, openly available on my LinkedIn. There will be a link of this in the WhatsApp group now. It's also annotated on my LinkedIn. What that means is actually tells you where and why and how I got these experiences, because my CV is, I think, like 6 pages long. And again, it's not because I scored the best or I had the best experiences. It's just because I really scaffolded anything and everything that I could get. So, an example of what an experience looks like in my own CV. Again, you could follow this, which is completely fine, normal, standard sentences. But what makes it easy for me is doing it this way, which means condition. So, I worked with Parkinson's disease, epilepsy, learning difficulties. What are the interventions? Again, if you look at the interventions, it's actually not any ACT CBT there. It'll say deliver personalized physical, social, and psychological interventions, including assisted mobility. It'll say monitored for seizure triggers, supported daily living activities, and then applied sensory integration techniques, and then provided psychological support through relaxation exercises, deep breathing, And then it's part of CBT, mindfulness to manage symptoms. It can be that simple. The reason I want to show you this is because I don't want you to feel like after this workshop, you have to do exactly what I explained and how I did it. You can find your own way as long as it works. And the main important part is as long as it feels natural to your brain. Every brain is different. So find your own way as long as you are covering everything that needs to be covered. Right. Phase two, and this is the AI heavy part. Before we go in, I want you to again remember AI cannot generate anything new. So, a lot of times I get this question that sometimes we read the job description and it's very vague. That happens. A lot of times it does happen because your job description is your answer key. It is where all the answers to what a supporting statement should be, everything is present. And the reason why I focus on supporting statements so much is, like I said, your CVs don't change. Your CVs are the overview or the snapshot of your career, but your supporting statement is where your uniqueness comes through. You and your peer could have done the same exact job roles, but your supporting statement can look completely different from hers or theirs. Right. So, first question, if anybody is asking, what do you do if the job description is vague? And most people find this. And it feels like, okay, it's not enough information. Because your job description is your research documents. It is where you find explicit skills, implied competencies, cultural signals, everything. So if this is a problem, research the department, research the team, search for older similar job descriptions, even if it's from like a different organization. Sometimes the same job role was might be open 2 years ago and that job description might be somewhere lingering. So do your little research, do your little investigation and find it. Now compare other organizations, similar hiring roles, and you will find more job descriptions. Again, the reason I want to say this is because never, ever, ever start writing a supporting statement when you don't feel like there is enough information in a job description, right? And now, over the time, I want you to maintain a folder on your laptops, drive wherever with all the job descriptions that you're finding. Over the time, you will notice a pattern and things will get quite obvious on like what to do and what to write. So this is what my um, drive looks like. I think I've got like about hundreds of job descriptions just lined up. And this really helps you identify missing keywords, expectations, because a lot of times, this might sound wrong, but a lot of times recruiters get a little lazy and they kind of do implied skills instead of explicit skills. So let's say this example says working aged adults, and this description was very vague. I might open a different job description that is working with a similar population, similar setting, and I might find a lot more skills, a lot more phrases that the job description might not have. So yes, please maintain a job description folder. Okay, this is where it gets important. Next time you are writing a supporting statement after you have audited your CV, you have done your ingredients. Please do not skip the first phase or the second phase. Annotate your job description like a research paper. You cannot skip this part. A lot of you just want to get to writing it. It can't happen. Unfortunately, you have to do this. So choose two colors of highlighters. If you want to print it, print it. If you're somebody who can do it digitally, do it digitally. Now, first thing is highlighting the clinical and academic skills. What that means is your interventions, your assessments, your safeguarding, your research, all of those. Now coming to the behavioral and communication skills, which is organization, teamwork, punctuality, authenticity, all of those. And the most important part, never ever skip a word that you don't fully understand. If you do not understand something, please add a note or a comment next to it and look for that word. A lot of times people skip some very, very important words just because they don't think it holds that much value, and that can impact your entire supporting statement. So search for unfamiliar terminology, because over the time that also becomes your terminology. It becomes part of your natural talking, and it's very important. Okay. This is what it should look like. Again, you can do it both ways. I like to first do the highlighting. So let's say here I've highlighted one thing that is the clinical skills, and then I've probably done the behavioral skills with a different highlighter. And sometimes I also go and underline the phrases that I think would be helpful to include in the supporting statement. Because again, if I'm the recruiter and I have written this job description, this is my language, right? If you copy my language and put it in your supporting statements, my eyes will pattern recognize it instantly. So use the exact same words, use the exact same phrases. Obviously, have evidence to it. Don't just copy paste it if you don't have those skills. But if you do, please follow the language. Okay. Decode the job description. What that means, read it deeply before you write a single word. Annotate the job description before drafting anything from your memory. Applicants who annotate first write faster and produce more specific first drafts. Okay, now extract the keywords. These are your ingredients. So before you make your burrito bowl, you will need the ingredients, which are the tomatoes, onions, chilies, cheese, sour cream, all of those. Keywords are your ingredients. So multidisciplinary working, organized, risk assessment, communication, safeguarding, leadership, data analysis, neurorehabilitation, could be anxiety management, challenging behaviors, all of those. Make a list of that. Your job description is literally giving you all the answers that need to be in your supporting statement. Your job is to match your experiences to these keywords honestly and clearly. This is where it gets a little tricky, right? Because a lot of you might say, okay, I have the skill of risk assessment in multiple jobs that I've done. So do I mention it multiple times? No, you don't have to. You can mention it once and say that you have done it multiple times, but you don't have to mention it multiple times. How can that be solved? Decide your supporting statement structure. Without a structure, you will just be repeating the same skill multiple times to show them that you have that skill and you've done it multiple times. Do not do that. There's many ways to choose your supporting statement structure. Either choose the rubric structure, which the job description gives you. A lot of times, the job description has its own structure. Either follow that. If you're comfortable, make your own consistent structure, or this is what I like to use. This has been my standard for a long time, and it works for me. It might not work for you. It works for me. And if you are somebody who is still struggling with the structure bit and you need a guide that is sitting next to you, I have a book that book's index looks like this. We talk about introduction to assistant psychologist, what is a supporting statement, how to structure it, writing your each section, showcasing your experiences. So how to highlight transferable skills. So that what we were talking about, if I don't have an assessment skill, how do I actually talk about assessment? So how to highlight your transferable skills, how to showcase psychological knowledge, reflective writing, polishing your statement. So it's again a 36-page book which goes in depth of every single tiny thing that you need to do for a supporting statement. And this is what it looks like from application to interview. There is also a second book if you are at the phase of interviews. This interview book is, I think, like a 150-page book, and it has hundreds of my own interview notes. And if you need any of these books, it's again on the MindDhara Forward link that was sent earlier in the group. Okay, phase 3, the last, almost at the last. Right. Now actually start writing. You've got your keywords from your job description. You've got your ingredients. You have written that 500, 700 document for each of your job description, employment history. Now circle the overlaps. What are you finding from the job description, and what is that skill or those skills that is matching to one or couple jobs that is matching the most? So let's say you have 4 past roles, and job 3 matches the most with your job description. So you start talking about it first. So before you start typing, I would highly recommend trying voice typing. What that means, open a blank document and then start walking around, spinning in your chair, whatever gets you going. I want you to talk. I want you to put the headings of the section. So put the headings of the structure before you start voice typing, and you really, really, really talk from your heart. It could be absolutely nonsense. It does not have to make sense. It just needs to be a lot of words that are coming out of your mouth that are in here. It does not need a structure, does not need spelling corrections, no grammar, nothing. Just put it into words. Even if it has to be in your native language, do a voice recording. Right. Now read what you have done through your voice typing. And voice typing, you don't really need an AI for it. A lot of Microsoft Word, all of these old Microsoft ones have it. And even like your Notes app has it. So again, nothing big tech wise. Voice type it, speak your answer to each sections freely. Do not edit while speaking. When you're speaking, do not read it and feel like, oh, I need to make this better. No, do not find the right word. Just keep speaking. And then you read it back and add more. You might find things that you've not thought about when you were talking. Add more, let it overflow on purpose. Now, this is where you've turned on the speech to text, because most people think it's better to type than to talk, but talking comes to us naturally. Cognitively, it's much easier. So that's why I want you to speak first. Talk about your experiences, your stories, reflection, examples, and then edit it afterwards. When I talk about experiences, a lot of people working in the psychological space have personal experiences as well. If you're somebody who's comfortable sharing them, please do it. Lived experience is highly valued in psychology. Okay, so now match the experiences to keywords. Open your ingredients, which was the 500 to 700 word documents that we have saved. Now match these keywords. Are you missing something? Can anything else be added? This is where you save time. Instead of actually typing the 1500, 1200 words, you have just walked around. You've done your JD, like job description highlighting. It probably will take you like 1 hour, 30 minutes when you are actually like getting used to it, 1 hour max to annotate a job description. Then you are talking to your phone or to your Microsoft document for, let's say, max 20 minutes. Right. And now you open your ingredients because you've already made essays out of each of your job description. You have already written what needs to be written. Now you actually match and see what's missing. Right. You start with the job role that matches the highest number of keywords to the current role that you're applying to. Right. Again, turn on your audio to text, speak whatever to fill in each section. Now read it, fill more till you feel like, okay, you've done enough, you have nothing else to add. Okay, the end game. This is where it's going to come to life and where AI will be used. Now use AI to refine the draft. What you're going to do in any AI tool that you do use your CV again. If you skip the first step of refining your CV, your output will be poor. Your refined CV, your annotated job description, the marking criteria or person specification, if there is, the rough supporting statement that has come from your reflection, your heart, your blabber. Upload it. Do not upload the key word ingredient list that we have created, the refined 5 700. Let AI find the keywords to match itself. This keeps the output natural and the reasoning honest. You don't want to give it the keywords, right? Give it the mess. And then this is the prompt that you use. It will be in your chat box in a second. This is the longer prompt. Again, it's not a magical prompt. It's something that has worked for me and it might work for you. So this is the prompt that you use. And then that's it. Use AI to build the final statement. So you're using AI to delegate the structure, assembly to AI, free up your working memory to actually use your higher order judgment. If you're done writing your final statement at this point, there are certain questions you should ask yourself. That is, does this sound like me? Very, 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 very important. Very important because, again, could be your moral compass, could be ethics, could be your interview. You need to know, is every example accurate and real? Could I expand it on any of the interviews without hesitation if I went for? Does the vocabulary feel natural or does it feel borrowed? there needs to be all these questions that you need to ask. Does it feel compressed? Did it actually summarize everything? It shouldn't be a summary. And also, side note, there are these massive hyphens that you'll see in AI. Please remove them and add commas. Second thing, a lot of not statements, which are the antithesis statements. AI will say this is not that, but. So there's a lot of not statements. It is not just joyful, but enjoy, but let's say blissful. It will use a lot of not statements. So I think the biggest two giveaways of AI, by the looks of it, is those massive hyphens and not statements. And then for recruiters, we read so many statements that if it feels robotic, if it feels too polished, we can tell. So just make sure that every line feels like something you would naturally say. The judgment is yours. This is what I mean by AI amplifies your thinking rather than replacing it. Last slide is the ethical checklist. Before you submit anything, run through this checklist without skipping a single item. Every example in the statement is real, comes from your experience. There is nothing in there that AI added without a source in your materials, because sometimes it will do it. There is no content. You could not speak to your recruiters confidently in depth if somebody had to ask you. Read the statement out loud. If you're somebody who gets bored reading your own statement out loud, do the read out loud option. It's there on almost every Microsoft document, anything that you do. Listen to your own statement. Listen to it once, listen to it twice if you need to. But please listen to it. Does the vocabulary actually sound like you? Does this version actually feel like you? Are there any statistics, outcomes, qualifications that are not entirely accurate? And finally, could you read the statement out loud during your interview, line by line, without flinching at any point? If all of this is a check mark, then you've done great. That's your supporting statement. This is the summary of what you need to do. And then we have some, let's say, resources, and I will show you where to find them. So let me stop sharing this. And this is our website. It is minddhara.com. And if you go down here, we have clinical help, and then we have the student help. You can click here, which is MindDhara Forward. And if you scroll, these are the books that I was talking about. And if you scroll, and there's a button here. It'll say explore free resources. When you click here, it'll take you to a massive Excel sheet, which has a lot of PDFs, which have a lot of resources. Let's say interview questions, vocabulary, all of those things. Very helpful if you are just starting out. So that is something that I want to leave you with. And then again, this is what I mean by a system. The reason job searching can feel so intimidating, overwhelming, is because you are doing the same thing again and again. If everything feels equally urgent all the time, then the system needs fixing. Please maintain a tracker for all your applications, which means a lot of times you might be applying for 1, 2, 3, or sometimes 5 applications in a week. Keep a tracker. Please keep a tracker and see which ones are the ones getting interviews, which are the ones that are making you feel tired, which are the ones that are making you excited. Please track that. A clear plan means that energy gets spent on the right things, on reflection, on quality, on general preparation, rather than just figuring out where to start. So here's the closing thought for the day. Please don't feel like you're behind, or you're doing it wrong, or you're just, not the right person for this job. Everybody who's here has felt that they're a misfit in this field. So please forget all of that. That's not true. You're just missing a system, and this is the system. It will take you time, probably 1 week, 2 weeks, but don't skip it. It has saved hours of time, hours for me, and it will for sure save time for you. And if you still feel overwhelmed, I'm always here. I do one-to-one support sessions, and these links will be shared in the WhatsApp group as well. And this is just the link to the website, MindDhara website that I just showed you. Sometimes you might have payment issues and things like that because it works globally. If that's the case, you can also come to TopMate. This is the link again that will be shared. These are all the places that were available. We share daily resources on our Instagram, on our LinkedIn, and our WhatsApp groups. And that's it. That's the end of it. Thank you so much for being with me during your bank holiday. And I know this has run longer than anticipated. If anybody has any questions, I will hang around here for a couple minutes. Happy to answer. Yes, Anisha, please tell me. Anisha? Uh, Anisha, do you have a question? I can't hear you if you're saying something. Victoria, do you want to go while Anisha's? Anisha or Victoria, anybody can go. I saw both the hands up.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi, Victoria.
I would like to ask you if I have only my home country experience, like how is it better to present it? Like, should I add something to transfer to the UK experience, or how it works?
So it completely, again, yes, the shortest answer is always, always, always transfer and translate your experiences. But also, it depends what your experience is. It's very, very subjective to your own CV. There might be some roles that are purely could be like translational, and like for example, UAE has assistant psychologist roles, UK has assistant psychologist roles, India has psychometrician roles, US has psychometrician roles. So sometimes it's easier to transfer. But if the role title that you are looking for to translate does not exist entirely in the country that you are, then you might have to do some digging and find a similar role. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and if I worked as a clinical psychologist, but in my country it's unlicensed profession,
Yeah.
unprotected, is it okay to mention for assistant
Yes.
psychologist?
Yes. A lot of times, for example, even in India, Pakistan, you are a clinical psychologist a lot of times without the PhD or a psychotherapist, and you can mention that completely. And the roles, your duties might be very
Isn't it too overqualified for the assistant psychologist role?
well. You weren't practicing in a country that was not allowing you to. You've practiced in a country where you were legally allowed to. So yes, you're allowed to say that you were a clinical psychologist, and a lot of recruiters are aware of this differentiation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anisha, did you still have a question? Yes. Okay, that's fine. Your microphone's not working. The chat is just loading in a second. Okay. Hi, sorry, I guess the microphone is not working. That's okay. I just had a small question about the audit part, which are asked in research project under job description. Can you explain what exactly audit means? So please don't be intimidated by the word audit. It just means going back and doing a check. Audit just means going back and checking for each and everything. It Let's use a different word. Let's use health checkup. You're doing a health checkup for your CV. That's it. It's audit just means that. It's just making sure everything looks like it's in place. So you can even call it double checking everything. So please don't focus on the word audit. It's a word that I just like to use. But yeah, that's all that means. Does that help? I'll wait for the chat, Anisha, if you have any follow-up questions. Yes, thank you. Kalpana, please let me know what your question is.
Yes. Like Victoria even mentioned, so in India, a psychologist is someone who completed their master's in psychology, whether clinical, AI, or whatever, or OI, or counseling, whatever it is. But as far as I know, in UK, you have to have a doctorate degree to
Yes.
call yourself a psychologist, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yes.
And to do this. There's something called as the PPS registration and all of
Yes.
these things. I was just going through a lot the last
Yes.
time I was reading. So could you just brief me about all of these things?
So I would love to, but that is such a long conversation. I would say email me separately so I can talk about all of that. It's a whole system of a country that I don't think I would do justice by explaining it to you in 2 minutes. So I don't want to give you misinformation or shorten it too much. So please reach out to me and I would love to talk to you about the whole process.
Totally makes it. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Another
Thank
thing
you.
that I had in my mind was, is there any reference or something like you showed your CV to us, and that really helped a lot. So something like a supporter and statement. What does it actually look like? Is it also available on your website or?
Not on my website, but it should be on the resource list that I spoke about. So yes, if you go to the website and if you find the resources, this bit. So let me share my screen again. Again, if you get my books, there are so many of it in there. Like I said, there's hundreds of answers and questions written in there, probably also supporting statements. But if you're looking for general free resources, if you scroll here, if you go to minddhara.com/forward, you scroll here, this is where all the resources exist.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Yeah, a lot of times you might find like sample CVs but not supporting statements, because again it feels like, so for an early career person who is really struggling to write a supporting statement, if I leave the supporting statement out there, a lot of times what happens is it becomes a very copy pasting situation, and again, I gave the person the fish and I don't teach them how to fetch, so that's why I don't have my entire supporting statements out there. But yeah, my books, again, you won't find entire supporting statements, but I have broken them down into sections, what different sections look like, so you can kind of make a supporting statement out of it. But yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
of course. Yamini, please tell me.
Hi, Shija. Thanks so much for this session. It was really helpful. I had a question regarding CV structuring. So I'm currently working in a research role and I work across like multiple different projects. And there are often skills that like overlap across these projects. I was just wondering, like, should I list these projects out separately and then the skills, or like, is there a structure that you have that sort of works better?
If you give me 1 second, I can try to find my own CV, because I was working in a research role which had multiple projects. And simple answer, I would say list them as different projects, because again, research in itself has a lot of overlapping skills. So yes, don't repeat them. You can just add it in the first the list, and then you can just add the different skills that you have for different projects, because I'm assuming there might be some that are different. Yeah, does that
Yeah,
help?
that's yeah. Thank you so
I'm
much.
sorry, I'm still struggling to find my own CV. But yeah, you'll find it in the link. So yeah, I would say separate it into projects always.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? And if anybody is, shy or anxious to ask here, the WhatsApp group's there. My one-to-one sessions are there. I'm more than happy to talk to you guys there. I'll hang around here for a couple more minutes just to see, and then we can call it an evening. I'm okay if anybody has. Yes, Victoria, please tell me.
It's maybe the same question, but if I also apply for the volunteer roles, kind of like Brain Kind or other organizations, is it still okay to mention unprotected clinical psychologist, or is it
Yes,
overqualified?
always. So I don't want you to, again, this is the part of undermining our skills. If you were a qualified psychologist who could work independently in a country, you were a psychologist in that country and you will always be a psychologist in that country. So don't be afraid to say that you were a practicing independent practitioner there. You can write it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kavya. So, side note, Kavya, who is in this workshop right now, is our student wellbeing advisor for Forward in the UK. which means we are recruiting ambassadors across the UK and the US and Singapore, UAE, who are helping us be the ambassadors at ground level in universities. What that means is they are helping us understand student problems at the ground level and bringing it to us so we can co-create better solutions and resources for you guys. So if anybody is currently in a master's, bachelor's program anywhere outside their home country, any research, it could be clinical research, whatever psychology course it might be, and you're interested in this space, please let us know and we would love for you to be part of it. It's completely voluntary, by the way. Great. Should we call it a night then? Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. It was super fun. Oh, there we go, Kalpana.
I'm so sorry, I've been asking a lot
It's
of
okay. No,
questions.
it's okay.
You mentioned that you are hiring recruiters. I mean, if there is something like that, I know I keep checking your LinkedIn anyways.
Thank
But
you.
if there is anything, is there any way of getting an update?
I would say please email us at hello@minddhara.com. And don't worry, we've not started yet. We will start somewhere at the end of June. So still a little bit time. So yeah, please email us at hello@minddhara so we can just have you in our list of people to let you know when we are hiring.
Is it a remote location or is it
Yes. You need to be present in India, but it is remote, yeah.
totally understood? Thank you, thank you. And another thing, thank you so much for the session. It was an amazing, awesome session. Thank you for keeping it free. It really means a lot. So I had fun. I learned a lot of things, and it
Thank
cleared
you
a lot
so
of my
much.
doubts. So thank
Great.
you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. Guys, thank you so much. It was so much fun hanging out with you guys. I hope it helped. And again, if you have any questions, my chat is open. And thank you, Yamini. I will leave these slides thing as well in the chat. Have a fun night, and I hope you have a good weekend as well. Bye. Thank you, Mira.